Hello and welcome to the program. I am Suren. Let us consider healthy lifestyles. Today I would like to talk to you about letting go of grudges and bitterness. In other words, accepting and embracing forgiveness and moving ahead, moving on, moving forward. Many people have been and still can be hurt, and sometimes really very painfully, by the actions and words of another. It is possible that a parent may have constantly criticized you growing up, or a colleague sabotaged the project you were working on, or your partner had an affair with someone else. Maybe you had a traumatic experience, like being physically or emotionally abused by someone who was close to you. These type of abuses can be deep and very painful hurts, and they can leave lasting emotions of resentment, anger, and even hatred. However, if we hold that hurt or pain, we might be the ones who pay most dearly, often with our physical and even emotional being. However, by embracing forgiveness, we can also embrace peace and hope. Think about how forgiveness can lead you down the path of physical and emotional, as well as spiritual well-being. And so, what shall we call or describe forgiveness as? I believe forgiveness would mean so many different things to different people. We need to understand that it involves an intentional and absolute decision to let go of anger and resentment, and that may be very, very hard to do. The act which hurt or offended you might always be with you, sometimes for the rest of your life. But working on forgiveness can reduce the acts that may have a grip on you. It could also healthily free you from the control of the person who hurt you painfully. And so, forgiveness might even lead to feelings of understanding and compassion for the one who gives you the pain. But it does not mean forgetting or excusing the wrong done to you. It does not necessarily mean making up with the person who caused you the hurt and the pain initially. Furthermore, forgiveness can only bring peace, which naturally allows you to focus on yourself and helps you go on with your life. We may surely ask, as many of us do, what good does forgiveness do or bring? Letting go of enmities, grudges, and letting go of bitterness can make way to improve your health and indeed give you peace of mind. Forgiveness can lead you to healthier relationships, improved mental health, less anxiety, stress, and hostility, a fewer symptoms of depression, lower blood pressures, a stronger immune system, improving your heart health, as well as providing you with an improved self-esteem. So, is it easy to hold a grudge against anyone, would you think? If you have been struggling with finding forgiveness, it is possible that it can bring anger and bitterness into new relationships and experiences. Become so wrapped up in the wrong that you cannot even enjoy the present moment. Become depressed, irritable, or anxious. Feel at odds with your, say, spiritual beliefs. Lose valuable and enriching connections with others. Then, how can one move towards a state of forgiveness? According to some prominent psychologists, let us not forget that forgiveness is a commitment to change. Yes, indeed, it too takes practice. Now, to move forwards or towards forgiveness, you may need to recognize the value of forgiveness and discover how it can improve your life. Identify what needs healing and who you want to forgive. It may be even yourself. You may even join a support group or see a counselor if you must. Acknowledge your emotions about the problem, harm done to you. Recognize how does those emotions affect your behavior and work to release them. Choose to forgive the person or persons who have offended you. Release the control and power that the offending person or situations have had in your life. What could happen if one cannot forgive someone or something or a situation? Well, forgiveness can indeed be very difficult, very hard, particularly if the person or the situation who or what hurt you does not admit to wrongdoing. If you somehow find yourself stuck, you indeed will need to practice empathy. Very hard, I know, but you can. Try seeing the situation from the other person's perspective and point of view. Then ask yourself about the circumstances that may have led the other person to behave in such a way. Perhaps you would have reacted similarly if you have faced the same situation. Then reflect on times when others have forgiven you. Write your experiences, if you like, in a journal. Pray if you must. Or utilize a guided meditation. Talk with a person you may have found to be wise and compassionate. Perhaps a mental health provider or an impartial loved one or a friend. But be aware that forgiveness is a process. Even small hurts may need to be revisited and forgiven again and again. And yes, it is how the human life is. Can forgiveness guarantee reconciliation? If the hurtful event involved someone who has the relationship you value, then forgiveness may lead to reconciliation. But that is not always the case. Reconciliation can be impossible if the other or the offender has died or is unwilling to communicate with you. This is a possible scenario. In other cases, reconciliation might not be appropriate. Still, forgiveness is possible, even if reconciliation is not. What if the person we are forgiving does not change? See, we cannot change people, only ourselves. Now, getting another person to change is not the point of forgiveness anyway. It is all about focusing on what you can control in here and now. Think of forgiveness as being more about how you can change your life by bringing you peace, happiness, and emotional or spiritual healing. Forgiveness can take away the power of the person who continues to have a prominent place in your life. What happens if we are the ones who need forgiveness? The very first step is to honestly assess and acknowledge the wrongs you may have done and how they had affected others. However, avoid judging yourselves harshly and unduly. If you are truly sorry for something you may have said or done and need forgiveness, consider reaching out to those you have wronged or even hurt. They speak of your sincere sorrow and sadness, or even your regret. Ask for forgiveness without making excuses. You cannot, however, force someone to forgive you. You just need to accept their forgiveness in their own time. This is what many other counselors and psychologists agree. Remember, forgiveness is a process. Whatever happens, commit to treating others with compassion, empathy, and respect. These are not my words alone. Forgiveness in the psychological sense and in encyclopedic covering is the intentional and voluntary process by which one who may have felt initially victimized, hurt, harmed, goes through a process of changing feelings and attitudes regarding a given offender for his or her actions, and overcomes the impact of the offender's order of mistakes, including the negative emotions like resentment or a desire for revenge and vengeance. They are not really holy, divine, or godly things. There are certainly many theories which differ in the extent to which they believe. Forgiveness also implies replacing the negative and hurtful emotions with most positive attitudes, and it requires reconciliation with the offender. In certain but legal contexts, forgiveness is a term for absolving someone of debt, loans, obligations, or other claims. Such legal issues or usage can also be thought of as mercy, being distinct from forgiveness. On the psychological level, forgiveness is different from simply condoning, considering the action as being harmful, hurtful, painful, yet to be forgiven or overlooked for reasons of charity, excusing or releasing the offender from responsibility for their actions, or forgetting to remove from one's consciousness the memory of the offense. In some schools of thought, it involves a voluntary effort at the self-transformation or one's half of a relationship with another in such situations that one is restored to peace, and ideally to what Carl Rogers, as I read once, has referred to as unconditional positive regard towards the other. Forgiveness conceals off the past wrongdoings and removes it from the present. As a psychological concept and virtue, the obligation to forgive and forget and the benefits of forgiveness have been explored in religious thought, moral philosophies, social sciences, and even in medicine. Forgiveness may be considered simply in terms of the person who forgives, which may include forgiving themselves as well. This can be in terms of the person forgiven or in terms of the relationship between the forgiver and the person being forgiven. Often, forgiveness is granted without any expectation of restorative justice and without any response on the part of the offender, who may forgive a person who is incommunicado or dead. In practical terms, it may be necessary for the offender to offer some form of acknowledgement, such as an apology, or to explicitly ask for forgiveness for the wrong. Persons to believe themselves being able to forgive within the social and political dimensions, forgiveness involves the strictly personal or private and religious sphere of forgiveness. The notion of forgiveness is generally considered unusual in the political field. However, Hannah Arendt considers that the faculty of forgiveness has its place in public affairs. She believes that forgiveness can liberate resources, both individually and collectively, in the face of the irreparable situations, by freeing people to act in ways that are not merely reactive to the original wrong. Forgiving is the only reaction which does not merely react, but to act anew and unexpectedly, unconditioned by the act, which provoked it in there in the first place, for freeing from its consequences, both the one who forgives and the one who is forgiven. Forgiveness involves willingly putting aside the feelings of, shall we say, resentment towards someone who has committed a wrong, being unfair, or who had been hurtful, or otherwise caused harm to you in some ways. Forgiveness is not merely accepting what happened or ceasing to be angry. I think the message is quite clear. To have peace of mind, this is where we are at. We will meet again by the next episode. Until then, keep smiling and be happy. Thank you.